Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. The Golden Globes are canceled. NBC has pulled the plug and decided that they will not host next year's Golden Globe ceremony. We're going to talk about what this means, if there will be any kind of Golden Globe ceremony next year, why this happened, and the history of the Golden Globes that led up to this moment.
And we have so many musicals contending for Oscars, this is insane. Like, we can't talk about, oh, it's going to get nominated for Comedy Musical now.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that In the Heights, West Side Story potential matchup that we were going to get at the Golden Globes, and now that's not even going to happen. As awards aficionados, we're all used to the Golden Globes being a huge major stopping point on the road to the Oscars, and it's a little strange not to have them this year, potentially. And the Golden Globes are the second biggest televised awards event, aside from the Oscars, and they have huge influence because of it. When you win a Golden Globe, it's like a big deal, and other award ceremonies see this, and it's also like the first major awards ceremony usually. So the Golden Globes have a lot of power, but they only have like 86 members. And so this is kind of the root of a lot of the issues here, is having so few members, having so much power. That means it's very easy for studios to campaign directly to these voters and for that to have a big impact. The Golden Globes have a history of corruption with gift giving and studios putting them up in hotels and a whole bunch of new allegations detailed in a recent investigation by the LA Times, where most notably it was revealed that the Golden Globes do not have any black members and have not for about 2 decades. This spread around the internet and caught fire and was fueled by lots of prominent celebrities, directors, actors. Things all started tumbling down this week, resulting in the NBC saying they wouldn't air the show until reforms have been addressed. And so they do plan to air next year's show. They do plan to air the show in 2023, hoping that reforms are implemented. The Golden Globes are the awards ceremony run by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and the HFPA is an organization made up of LA-based journalists writing for foreign outlets.
And basically their main role is to vote for the Golden Globes. And so they have this small, very exclusive club. There's a lot of gatekeeping and other problems that go along with this incestual group of people.
Some fun examples of how easy the Golden Globes are to campaign to. In 1982, the actress Pia Zadora was awarded the Globe for Newcomer of the Year, basically, when they had that category, for this movie Butterfly, which critics did not like. And it was revealed that weeks before voting, HFPA members were flown by the winner's husband to his casino in Las Vegas. In 1993, Al Pacino won Best Actor for Scent of a Woman after HFPA members flew to New York on a promotional trip for the movie that included interviews with Al Pacino. Sharon Stone actually has 2 great stories here. Known as a good friend of the association, apparently, she sent handwritten thank you notes to each member after her news conference to promote Casino, and later won the award for Casino. She did not win the Oscar for that film. And 4 years later, the HFPA members were forced to return these Coach watches that they were given by USA Films, the distributor of a Sharon Stone film called The Muse, which was also not very critically acclaimed, which she received no other nominations for, and ended up receiving a nomination for the film. The studio sent them $400 watches that they had to send back because it exceeded the gift-giving price limit, and the studio claimed that they had no idea how much the watches were worth.
Didn't Tom Ford do that for Nocturnal Animals?
Yep, Tom Ford did the exact same thing in 2016, where he gave each member 2 bottles of cologne that was very expensive, and they each had to return one because one was allowed under the price limit, and he ended up getting director and screenplay nominations and a nomination in supporting for Anya Taylor-Johnson, a win in supporting, and all of these things were very, very surprising to anyone paying attention that year. And so the Globes does have a limit on the amount that you can gift to these members, but there's a lot more that goes into schmoozing with these people than just gift giving. So for example, in 2019, and this was kind of a big story, 30 HFPA members were flown to France to go to the set of the TV series Emily in Paris. The group was treated to 2-night stays at 5-star hotels where the rooms were valued at a $1,400 a night minimum. That show, which was not very critically acclaimed, was nominated for 2 major Golden Globes and many say at the expense of Michaela Cole's show, I May Destroy You. And one member says of this event that they treated them like kings and queens. I even found an article from 1996 called Fool's Gold, written by Sharon Waxman, that's all about the HFPA sort of corruption, and it just sounded exactly like what they still do today. But this LA Times piece that came out on February 21st, which includes anonymous interviews from people who are HFPA members, former HFPA members, and other people who are sort of insiders, was really the tip of the iceberg here. That article wasn't just about the lack of black members in the organization, even though that is the main thing that caught fire and caused people to say, we need to bring change to this organization. That article also highlighted a dismissed lawsuit that a journalist who wasn't accepted into the HFPA made, accusing them of a culture of corruption, claiming that the operation acts as a sort of cartel, that they bar qualified applicants, that they sort of self-deal, so they make a lot of money and they set up these commissions so that they can give each other money for just working internally. In June 2020, it was said that the HFPA collected nearly $2 million in payments from their own group. And even 4 years ago, this number was less than $1 million. So it more than doubled in just a short amount of time. So are things getting even more out of hand?
And also for a nonprofit organization, you cannot take in money like that. So it makes people question whether them paying themselves is a violation of that rule. It does sound like it is. And nonprofit organizations are tax exempt. And so taxpayers are picking up the bills for them. So it's why are our tax dollars going to fund this?
If you're doing work internally in the organization, it's not internally corrupt to be paid for it. But tax experts say exactly what you're saying, that if the association is this sort of tax-exempt organization, what they're doing should be giving back to the community of Fillmore. And they have some charities that they've used to kind of try to clean up their own reputation, but they create all these committees. One member even said I wouldn't even be surprised if they created a committee for the committees, something along those lines. So it just sounds like it's not even they need all these committees. They're just giving reasons to keep paying themselves.
And what interest do they have in being a part of this exclusive club? It's not just because they want to honor these films and vote for them in this ceremony, but being a member of the HFPA gives you very exclusive access to screenings and press events. It gives you prestige. And so because it's very small, they actually have a disincentive to change, because them being exclusive enables them to have more status. And so I think that segues well into the gatekeeping aspect of the HFPA. As per their policy, they're only allowed to admit 5 new members a year, and they probably don't even have to admit anybody, and they probably don't admit 5 people a year. And there are a lot of allegations, people saying that they are supremely qualified to be a member, but they just will not expand their membership.
There's even an instance in that 1996 article that I read that says the same thing, that there's qualified applicants who meet all the criteria, who are maybe even writing more pieces per year and have more prestige than some of these members in the organization, and they don't get in. The Golden Globes even said oh, well, we have a really hard time finding black people to let in the organization. They don't even apply. And then The Wrap came out with a report saying that in 2013, they have on record somebody who said that they were very qualified and did apply. They were black and they didn't get in.
It's just in their best interest to keep the group the way it is and not change and not expand it. They just have been very stagnant, not expanding and not doing any sort of outreach to improve the makeup of their group.
One HFPA member in this article said that the dismissal of the lawsuit alleging corruption of the HFPA was disappointing to them because they wanted to see the Golden Globes shake up. They were very aware of all this corruption going on. To some of these members, it's just very, very obvious that this has been happening for a long time. The studios have no reason to sort of speak out against this relationship either, because the Golden Globes are easy to campaign to. They know how to campaign to them. They want to keep the awards show running because it's an important stop on the Oscars. It's great publicity for your movie. And so the studios were kind of responsible in upholding this sort of structure. And only recently did they speak out because they decided that it would look, in their best interest. And this quote from one of the anonymous sources in the LA Times article sums it up pretty well. They say the HFPA members live for the events rather than for the love of movies. It's more about how you're treating them. You had to have nice receptions in elegant places. If you didn't do that, you'd hear complaining that it wasn't great. They were very vocal about it. So yeah, the more you read down it, the more you go down this rabbit hole of payments and self-dealing and luxury hotels, and it's almost endless. So after this all happened, the HFPA sort of made a short statement at their awards ceremony about how they wanted to reform. They also said May 3rd that they were going to have a new CEO, a new chief of diversity, a new equity and inclusion officer, other administrative executives. They also said that they were going to admit 20 new members in the next year, which is obviously like way more than they normally would. With a specific focus on Black recruits, they said they wanted to get at least 13 to be like kind of on par with the US population. And they also said they wanted to expand that membership by 50% over the next 18 months. And they're going to focus just generally on like diversity within the organization. They were criticized for like not saying exactly when they were going to do things and not doing things quickly enough from, again, Time's Up and all these other folks. And Mark Ruffalo came out saying that he wasn't proud of his Golden Globe win because of these recent allegations. Scarlett Johansson even added that she had been subject to inappropriate questioning during her campaigning with the Golden Globes, which she said bordered on like sexual harassment. And in this time of criticism, Netflix and Amazon decided that they would halt all their activities with the HFPA until reforms were made. And when you have major studios stepping in to do that, that's a huge deal because these studios are like what holds the entire thing together. And then Tom Cruise came out and said that he's returning all 3 of his Golden Globes. And on the same day, NBC decided that they would not air the ceremony until reforms were made. And so it looks like we're probably not going to get a ceremony next year. And later that day, just hours after that announcement, the Golden Globes did release a more detailed timeline of how and when they plan to implement these changes. It includes adding 20 new members by August. They're implementing new policies on gifts, travel, conflicts of interest, and press conferences. And they're basically overriding like their CEO, their board, like they're changing like a lot of stuff. So are these reforms necessary? I think they definitely are for all the reasons that we said. Like the HFPA is just known to be corrupt, and in a way they're like everything wrong with awards season, and having those shady dealings kind of tarnishes the reputation of awards, which I'm not a fan of. I'd love to see some more restrictions on that. If you have awards bodies that are voting every single year on like which Black artists to nominate, you have to have some of them in your organization at least be representative of like the population. There's not really an excuse to have no Black members in your entire organization. The more diverse your body is, I think the more objective you can be with like your nominations and your awards. And that's kind of what we want from an awards show. I think why this also is a smart move in a way is because if you have the awards this year, you might have a lot of actors protesting if they haven't enough time to reform their organization. They would have a lot of people taking it less seriously and perhaps boycotting the ceremony. And hosting an awards show where people like are deliberately not showing up, they're protesting, it would be like a terrible idea. That'd be the worst thing you could do. At least taking a pause like does give them at least the veneer of like, oh, we've changed and we've like actually taken a step back and thought about it. I would definitely not bet on a ceremony being back this year. I mean, it's possible that another studio could pay to pick up the Golden Globes ceremony, or that the Golden Globes could just like announce them in another way, but that would just be like not the right move for the Golden Globes. It wouldn't be the right look for them to be like, but we're gonna put on the show anyway, haha. Like they do have to step away and make it seem like they're thinking about what to do and reforming. Some people even will cite like this writer's strike that took place around the 2008 ceremony, where the Golden Globes just sort of like more quietly like read out like what their winners were without putting on a show. I don't even think they're going to do that. At the end of all this, they may have a more diverse membership, but they still have a very small group of people. It's nice that it will be more restricted. Hopefully they will live up to their word. I still would have a problem even if they expanded their membership 50% or so, that they're really small, and that still makes them easy to campaign to. It doesn't make it feel as important as getting like an Academy Award that's voted on by like so many industry professionals. It doesn't make that much sense why they exist in the first place. I think the reason they exist is because NBC gives them a lot of money and they put on a good show, let's be honest. They like to have sort of raunchier hosts. They're known for getting everybody drunk and having a good time, being like a party. They do put on a good show, and I personally like reacting to the Golden Globes.
We like reacting to anything though.
Yeah.
Like, we're just suckers for it. Like, we will react to anything that is so-called important. In sort of a selfish way, like, I want the Golden Globes back eventually, just because they're a fun thing to react to. We have a long history of Golden Globes, and it's fun to see like how their awards turn out and how they are shaping up compared to other years. The comedy musical category is kind of absurd. Like, no part of me agrees that should be like its own thing to reward, but nonetheless, it does make it fun and it adds some spice.
Also, they're just so out of touch sometimes. Like, they nominated a movie where the director had to like apologize for its creation, like music. I mean,
I almost like that it's funny and terrible sometimes. I think they'll be back. Like,
yeah, I think they're gonna get an opportunity to be back. I just believe in like second chances, I guess, and I don't think they're gonna end up being perfect. I don't think that you're gonna fix all the members' like desire for that glitz and glam and those selfies necessarily, but I hope that they can make some improvements. And there's also just a broader conversation about how all these different awards bodies are changing in light of people saying like, we want your voting bodies to be representative of like what people look like and not just be like overwhelmingly white male and old. I mean, there are Academy statistics from just a few years ago that are like insane when you look at them, when you look at how many people are male, how many were white. Very disproportionate. But the Academy has made improvements where they've admitted a lot of new members and they're kind of evening out those numbers, and I think those are good reforms. And in a way, not having the Golden Globes is a little disappointing, and in some ways it's gonna make things like interesting and fun. And years where the Oscars can't just look at like what the Globes are doing and look at what the BAFTAs are doing is gonna make for a more interesting race as well.
I hope it doesn't reflect badly on the Oscars or the BAFTAs or the Critics' Choice, because there are awards shows that have a lot of integrity where the members are not being treated like divas, and they're just full of people who are passionate about films.
And there are a lot of people who actually think that the Golden Globes aren't gonna come back and that like they're just gonna slowly die and rot here. Or people are like, they need to die, they need to stop, they're rotten to the core, we can't even fix them. And to that, you know, I don't necessarily agree, but there's also an interesting discussion to be had on like the change of tides on like which awards shows are prominent. It's not set in stone that like there has to be like these certain precursors, like a new one could come along, or something like the Hollywood Critics Association could like be funded a lot more and put on like a great show that makes people care. Or maybe like the SAG Awards could amp up their show and become something that people look forward to more. Like things change. The Critics' Choice Awards aren't even like that old in terms of like how long they've been relevant. So a lot can happen.
And their categories literally reflect old Hollywood, the fact that there is still a category that honors specifically musicals. It is kind of like a more dinosaur organization. It hasn't been able to keep up with the times. So maybe we do see the Globes falling off a little bit. I actually think a bigger factor will be whether celebrities are satisfied enough with the reforms that they have done that they will come back and want to host the show and that sort of thing. And so that's going to be a big factor when we come to like next year.
Would love to know your thoughts. Are you disappointed by this news? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think the Golden Globes deserve another chance? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Have you been corrupted?